Settle down, brother. This is the Quarter Report powered by ANC.com. South Africa is a movie. Welcome to the watch party. Well, we have civil war in SAPS, and we also have open, all-out civil war in the ANC, because Brown Mogotsi, ANC fixer from the Northwest and one of the centerpiece faces of our Dan Corder Show whiteboard explaining the Madlanga, now let's be honest, extended cinematic universe. He did a bunch of media interviews in the last 24 hours where he revealed at least 7 bombshells, if you believe everything that he says. First, that ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula is going after Brown Mogotsi, amongst others, to try and damage Senzo Mchunu, to take Mchunu out of the race to succeed Cyril Ramaphosa. That's just one of at least 7 bombshells from the interviews that he did yesterday. We're going to dig into all of them, but this is a massive set of revelations and claims from one of the centerpiece alleged criminal kingpins in the Madlanga Commission inquiry. He accused Mbalula of being potentially inappropriately implicated or connected with criminals and scandals, including one involving Fikile Mbalula's wife and a failed housing project in the Free State. So, this is the Quarter Report powered by ENC.com. The only place to watch the full show, if you're watching, is at the link in the description to ENC.com on YouTube. You can also go and buy 3 Beanies Network merchandise. Thank you to everybody who is buying some of our merch, owning a little bit of the 3 Beanies Network extended universe. Give us a like and a subscribe if you're on YouTube. It obviously helps. Let's quickly start with why Brown Mogotsi matters so much. It was his WhatsApp messages that were thrown up on screen at the Madlanga Commission last Monday by Dumisani Khumalo to show what Khumalo depicted or described as inappropriate financial relationship between Mogotsi and Kat Matlala, who is basically, as we've been calling him, turmeric Kat Matlala, because like turmeric, he seems to be in every single corruption and criminal scandal in this country and stains all of it. He's involved in Tembisa. He tried to have his ex-girlfriend Tebogo Tobiane assassinated. Kat Matlala is everywhere, and Dumisani Khumalo's messages that they've been able to get off of Kat Matlala's confiscated cell phones show text record transcripts of Brown Mogotsi asking for and receiving money from Kat Matlala. Kat Matlala demanding help and protection from investigation within the police from Brown Mogotsi. Mogotsi saying that he was helping and trying to stop different investigations into Kat Matlala's dealings. Mogotsi showing Kat Matlala messages from Senzo Mchunu, then not suspended police minister, to show that Mogotsi was working with Mchunu to try and protect Kat Matlala. And Mogotsi knowing confidential police information that he had no right nor place as a normal regular citizen in South Africa to access. So all of that information got put on the table to add to things that both General Mkhwanazi and Fani Masemola, National Police Commissioner, have said about Brown Mogotsi. Then last week, Secretary General Fikile Mbalula did a lot after the Tembisa Hospital SIU presentation showing the over 2 billion rands ransacked and stolen and looted from Tembisa by all of these syndicates. Is Fikile Mbalula put out an ANC kind of declaration saying that the SIU investigation into Tembisa corruption proves that the ANC is taking the fight against corruption seriously, which is absolutely insane. The SIU investigation exposed the ANC complicit in the ransacking of a hospital over 4 years ago that the ANC has done nothing about since then, even as reputable journalistic reports have clearly shown Hangwani Maumela, the president's nephew by a previous marriage, involved in that. As more and more and more members of Gauteng Health, the Gauteng Health Department and other government officials who've been put in those positions by the ANC have been implicated. The SIU finally being able to put this out is in spite of the African National Congress. It is absolutely outrageous of Mbalula. And then, by the way, the president yesterday, after their NEC meeting, to say that the SIU work shows that the ANC is taking the fight against corruption seriously. The call is coming from inside the house, bro, to quote that old iconic horror movie line.
We're going to have to call Oyajola 99 and Jub Jub on this because we are being treated so badly by the ANC government. The gaslighting is astonishing.
I actually just realized what that was like. Mbalula saying that this shows that like the ANC is taking corruption seriously. is like the drug dealers saying that because one of their victims is going to rehab, they're taking the drug pandemic seriously. You enabled it, you created it, you let it slide, and now the consequences are coming. You're like, oh no, we think that's actually good. People shouldn't have a crippling drug addiction. It is crazy.
You got to call Fikile Mbalula Samsam because that man is spinning.
Go watch Skadonk. Great Cars reference, James. No, that was an objectively great Cars reference. So all that led up to Brian Mogotsi doing these interviews yesterday. And I want to particularly focus on an interview he did with the SABC in the Northwest. And I have never come across her kind of journalism before, but I want to give a shout out to the journalist who interviewed Brian Mogotsi. Sentleng Lehihi is her name. I think that's how you pronounce it. Wow. She, in 14 or 15 minutes, didn't get stuck in the weeds, just key question after key question after key question from which we are frankly benefiting from the answers. Okay, 7 points that Brian Mogotsi made. Because the other thing that Fikile Mbalula said last week is that Brian Mogotsi is a bad apple and the rot within the ANC, and they're trying to cut people like that out. Fikile Mbalula said that Brian Mogotsi is not a member of the ANC. And remember last week we were talking about how the ANC was going to try and localize the rot and say we're ripping the rot out of the party. The party is going to go through a renewal again. How many renewals before it's just Newell? It's like constant Newell all the time. Like there's no party left if you're renewing every 6 to 12 months. It's just constant flux. Also, the other thing is if you need to renew this many times, it might be telling you something about how you're failing to do anything good. If you're constantly renewing, it's probably because you're constantly screwing up. And this is the process of Mbalula doing that, saying it's just Brian Mogotsi and we can cut out Brian Mogotsi, hoping, I guess, that Senzo Nchunu will get away with it from one perspective. But Brian Mogotsi has another perspective. And this is where it's super interesting because this isn't just an ANC civil war. This is an ANC civil war that Brian Mogotsi has claimed between key Cyril Ramaphosa allies. That's how Brian Mogotsi's claims have changed this. Because Fikile Mbalula is a key Ramaphosa ally, his SG, one of the key figures who switched to Ramaphosa's side in the moment when Ramaphosa took power away from Jacob Zuma and took over the ANC. And another person who made that exact switch was Senzo Nchunu, then one of the most powerful players in KwaZulu-Natal, one of the most powerful voting blocs, not just in the ANC, but in the whole country. So here's what Brian Mogotsi said. He started by saying, I am an ANC member in good standing and my membership ends at the end of October. We haven't seen any evidence of that yet, hard paper evidence, but I have to say it's hella convenient that it's the end of this month, that it's expiring. Like the timing is wild. Okay. Then this was the big push that he wanted to emphasize. He said that Fikile Mbalula is going after him, Brian Mogotsi, to try and tarnish the name of Senzo Nchunu in the succession race to follow Ramaphosa as the ANC president and the president of South Africa, they hope, in the 2029 election. Ramaphosa is out of terms as South Africa's president, and so his term as the president of South Africa, which usually also means the president of the ANC, is coming to an end. We know that Senzo Nchunu has aspirations to lead the party. We know that Fikile Mbalula does also. And Brian Mogotsi essentially said that Mbalula is taking this opportunity to go after Mogotsi to tarnish Nchunu's name to knock out a rival for the succession battle within the African National Congress. That's his claim. It's an interesting claim. He doesn't have hardcore evidence of that, right? But then the journalist very fairly said, well, I don't know, you've got all of these allegations against you. There's this incriminating evidence in these WhatsApps about your potentially improper relationships between Kat Matlala and Senzo Nchunu, right? Brian Mogotsi. It seems like these messages show that you were catching on misdeeds. And Brian Mogotsi did two interesting things at once. The first thing he said was, no. My relationship with Kat Matlala is totally fine. Businessmen kind of fun functions of the ANC to get people to events like their January 8th celebration all the time. It's totally normal. We were just trying to get more people to the ANC Big Bash celebration. So what he does there is he kind of shows us that those WhatsApp messages, those text correspondences are legit. He's defending those WhatsApp messages and texts as his own and acceptable. But then he pivots into saying that some of the messages are not authentic, but doesn't tell us which ones are inauthentic. He just tries to claim that they could have been generated by AI or he never messaged them. But on the one hand, he defends some of those messages as real. And on the other hand, he says some messages, but he's not specific, are not real. But then the journalist asks him, well, why don't you tell me about some of these incriminating messages that are making you look really bad, Brown Mogotsi? And he says, no, I need to wait for the commission to talk about that. At which point, why did you do these interviews? Why did you come and do these interviews to try and clear your name? And then you rock up the interview and you say some of the messages are real and they're not improper or inappropriate. Some of the messages I will not talk about because I can only talk about them in front of the commission. And some of the messages are not authentic, they're fake, but I'm not going to tell you which ones. Why did you do this interview, man? It's making you look so much worse. The journalist asks him, well, you were implicated in the Tembisa hospital ransacking last week. And that's when Brown Mogotsi says, well, that proves that some of the messages in these correspondences are manufactured. But again, doesn't tell us which of the messages are, right? Because remember, the vast majority of the texts that Dumisani Khumalo showed us were about Mogotsi and Mbalula, but not about Tembisa. That's the SIU investigation. So he leaps to a manufacturing messages there, but still doesn't tell us which messages that Khumalo showed us are manufactured. It's fascinating to see how badly he butchered this and how well he was exposed by actually very straightforward questions from the journalist, because none of these questions, he could argue, took him by surprise. They were the obvious questions that needed to be asked after all these allegations over the last weeks and months. But then the other thing that he says is, rich of Fikile and Mbalula to talk about me being inappropriately associated with potential alleged criminals or convicts or sentenced people. Because then he said that Fikile and Mbalula has accepted money from dodgy business people, is associated with people who've been sentenced to crimes, and even brings up an old scandal involving Fikile and Mbalula's wife. Now, I actually had to look this up. This is reporting from the 23rd of January, 2017 from Silwani Kalane from News 24. About 106 building contractors are being sued, along with controversial ex-SABC boss Claudia Motsoeneng and Nozuko Mbalula, then Sports Minister Fikile Mbalula's wife, over a housing scandal in the Free State involving hundreds of millions of rands. According to court documents, the Free State Department of Human Settlement spent 631 million rand on housing between 2010 and 2011 with no houses to show for it. So Brown Mogotsi makes the point that, well, if Nozuko Mbalula, Fikile Mbalula's wife, was involved, then, in his words, Fikile Mbalula was a beneficiary as the husband of Nozuko Mbalula of that over 500 million rand spent with no houses built in the Free State. So what he's trying to say here is, be careful, Fikile. You've got skeletons in your closet also, and rich of you to come for me, and ironic for you to come for me over connections with misdeeds and alleged criminals and sentenced and convicted people in scandals, considering you have those too. And it reminds me of what we've been saying about Madlanga and about SAPS and about how everyone has dirt on each other. And this is where the serious stone throwing starts to happen, where everyone is panicking about saving their own skins and trying to massage their own reputations and besmirch the reputations of their enemies. And so now they're just hoying constantly. So those are the 7 bombshells from these interviews yesterday from Brown Mogotsi. 1, Mbalula working to remove rivals for succession like Mkhunu. 2, Mbalula connected to convicts, wife involved in a housing scandal. 3, Mogotsi is an ANC member in good standing till the end of October. 4, businessman paying for ANC needs is normal. 5, he never denies the truth of phone text correspondence and also questions the authenticity of some of the messages. 6, Brown Mogotsi refuses to speak on the compromising parts like Mbalula and the confidential police information. He says it has to wait for the commission when he appears there. And 7, he doesn't know about Tembisa, which allegedly proves these messages are manufactured. Now, pinch of salt, there's a lot of dirt against Brown Mogotsi, including those WhatsApps. Pinch of salt about whether to believe him or not, but those are the 7 bombshells that fundamentally evolve this story.
Leading on from what you were saying about everyone throwing stones at each other and bringing each other down, the mutually assured destruction of it all. I have seen, and granted, it is Twitter and comment sections on Instagram and YouTube, so it's not the vast majority of people, but I have seen people taking Brown Mogotsi statements as fact. And we're probably preaching to the converted with our audience, but something that is so important to remember about this entire process, and we've been saying it on every single platform that we have available to us, is that every single person here is trying to save their reputation and save their own skins. And every single one of these people are professionals at creating narratives. And
Correct.
all of them will be saying anything that they can to
Correct.
defend their reputation and keep themselves out of jail. And that is everyone in this scenario. It doesn't apply to some people and not apply to others. So
Right.
the only way we are going to establish the quote-unquote truth of this scenario is to take everything that everyone says, all these allegations, and rely on the legal and journalistic processes. Reasonable suspicion is healthy.
We need to weigh it up. We need to constantly be weighing it up. But it is fascinating because we all know Fikile Mbalula has wanted to be president for years. We all know that Senzo Mkhunu thought he could be president next. We all know that Paul Mashatile wants to be president. And all of the talk about skeletons. That guy is walking around with a graveyard on his shoulders. And there was not cremations involved in the putting together of that graveyard. So this is all happening at once. I mean, and I think if anything, it's cooking, it's overheating, it's putting this Madlanga Commission on 200 because everybody, and remember, it's not just these three or others who think that they could be the next ANC leader. It's all of the ANC people choosing which horse to bet on, saying, I'm going to go in Mkhunu's camp because hopefully he'll win and then I will get a position of prominence within his administration if he wins. Or Mbalula, or Mashatile, or a fun fourth person, you never know. Nomvula Mokonyane has been connected to it. Ronald Lamola, many people thought for a long time could be they could try and turn him into a Barack Obama figure, like a young, brilliant, charismatic leader. I don't think he fills all of those descriptions. But all of this is happening at the same time, and the ANC is in panic and lockdown mode.
Something else important to really hone in on is the fact that the local government elections are end of 2026, early 2027.
Correct.
And then
the Springboks next World Cup. The ANC
that's a safe bet.
Elective conference, I think, is 2027.
That period after 2026, but into the electoral conference is going to be super interesting to see how they flip based on the 2026 results.
Totally. And remember, people flip at the conference. I mean, I've told this story so many times, but I was at that wedding, the night, the Saturday night of the elective conference weekend where, what was it? Ramaphosa defeated Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. But as of Sunday morning, people thought Nkosazana might have it, and then it was David Mabuza switching sides to Ramaphosa in exchange for deputy presidency that caused Ramaphosa to win at all. But as of Sunday morning, most journalists didn't even know that had happened. I only found out on the Saturday night because I was at a wedding where a, let's just say, local businessman with deep ANC connections was also at the wedding, and someone came up to him when he and I were drinking together and quietly said in his ear, "Cyril's got it," and then walked away. And that was the moment when I was like, oh yes, the ANC really does run this country. And then the next morning, explosions. But yeah, James is right. So genuinely, people are going to be backing horses and horse trading and coming up with new narratives and spins all the way up to the night before the Sunday where that has to finally be voted on and decided.